Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back.
We are here. We're almost done with
Almost
season
done.
2.
Yeah, second to last episode, episode
Second to
9.
last episode. It's crazy. Oh my gosh. I swear Mars and I are always reflecting on when we started this thing and, seeing where we've grown to. And we're super, super excited to continue sharing with you all. As you guys know, another episode, another guest artist, guest speaker. We have on Dr. Quahana Hendree. She's joining us from Missouri. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
All the way from Missouri. We are super excited to get to learn more about her and share her with you guys. But before we get into it, make sure you guys go back and watch our last episode with Jordan. Oh, sorry, with Meryl. My bad. Gosh, have my weeks mixed up.
We've had so many episodes since then.
Yeah, so many
I feel
episodes. Yeah, but that was a really special talk. Meryl gave us such incredible advice. And so if you're a young artist, arts administrator, getting into the field, maybe you're feeling, blocked, not sure where to go. That's a really great episode to just hear her words, and hopefully she can bring you some guidance. But that's that. I'm gonna hand it over to Mars so she can get into today's episode with our lovely special guest.
Yes. So as Kira said, we have Dr. Quahana Hendree on with us. So to start off, can you tell us a bit about what it is that you do? We know that you're an arts consultant. So I guess, how did you get to this point? What has your experience been?
I've been an artist since I was 5 years old, performing and visual, but visual has been my main passion. So I've always been formally trained in it, and I've always wanted to connect people with art, but I didn't quite know how to do that. I had a friend whose mother was an art buyer, a corporate art buyer, and they're kind of a dying breed. I don't really see much of those around, but I thought, wow, that's awesome. So anyway, I kind of put it on the back burner. And I actually started off education in architecture. And I felt it was kind of a bit limiting. And so I thought, well, how can I be in art without producing art and use my business savvy? And so I just kind of made up my own major. And so I majored in business and art, and it turned out to be art management later on. So I got my bachelor's in that and worked in finance. And then I went to graduate school, and they had a formal art management program, which is kind of like an MFA and MBA together, sort of. And that was wonderful because it was really just talking about the management of the arts, whether you're in the nonprofit or if you're in the for-profit space. So I worked in galleries, museums for quite a while. After graduate school, and when I moved back to Missouri, the art jobs were anemic, so I couldn't find one. And so I actually used my business degree, and I worked as a marketing executive for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And then that position was eliminated in 2012. And I thought, wow, I have the opportunity, I have the resources, and I'm going to give myself permission to do what I've always wanted to do, which is connect people with art. And I recalled as I was in the corporate space, I would always see this terrible art in my office and in the hallways. And I thought, wow, it really affected my mood. And I started researching the clinical benefits of looking at art and hearing music and things like that, looking at dance, things like that. And there are clinically proven benefits to it. And so I thought, wow, I can put beautiful art in these spaces and help in a positive way, increase productivity, well-being, all of these things in the employees, as well as making sure that the people that inhabit that space are having an authentic experience. And I say, meaning that if I go into a bank, a medical clinic or whatever, the artwork should be aligned with what they do, not distract you from it. And so I thought, well, I started connecting with other art consultants, and I thought, wow, this is exactly what I want to do. So I gave myself permission to start my business, and that's how I'm here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Truly.
Wow.
That is powerful. Like, oh my, I'm like so many questions are like coming to my mind. But
yeah,
I'm like, okay, I want to backtrack because you gave us so much and I want to make sure we just squeeze as much out of it as possible. So
Awesome.
you started off by telling us that you have a background in both visual and performing arts. So could you like dive deeper into that and like just give us an idea of, you know, what did you do as a performing artist, or
Sure.
with visual art, did you paint, sculpt, photography, you know,
Yes.
what were
Yes.
your favorite things to
Yeah.
do?
Well, my entire family is in the arts, visual and performing.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's a singer. My cousin's a singer. All of us sing, but some of us do it professionally. And so my mom was a gospel singer, an in-demand gospel singer around the St. Louis area. So she was always singing at some church or some faith-based event. I was usually with her. And so I always sang like in the choir and things like that. But I was always in art class, drawing, painting, photography, all of that from like age 5, you know, onwards. My mother always had us in some sort of activity. So we were encouraged to play an instrument. My sisters played, one played the clarinet and one did the piano. Those were kind of too boring for me, so I wanted to be. I wanted to be Sheila E. Right, so I played the drums. My uncle is a world-class drummer. My cousin's a drummer, and I thought, wow, this is awesome. So I wanted to be Sheila E. So I started playing the drums, and I did that. I did that in high school, and it was fun. I loved it, and I haven't done it in a long time. And then you know I would sing, but never as good as my mom, and never with any intentions to do it professionally. I just love to sing.
Yeah.
But art has always been the forefront of what I wanted to do. And so it was always around me. Music and art was always around me. I even did dance a little while in elementary school. We had to take 3 art concentrations. So I would do visual, I would do performing, I would do something from each kind of category. So arts were always in my house. It was always colorful because of the music, because of the art, and so it was just a natural progression for me to just because I love to draw and paint. It was a natural progression for me to kind of go towards that, but I never wanted to paint for my dinner. I never wanted to draw to eat, right? But I had to be around it. I'm looking at one of my paintings in front of me right now, and I'm almost in tears because I did it when I was 14. And it was like the first piece I did, and it was actually in an exhibit at the university. Wow. And I got an award and all this other kind of stuff. Wow. But it was a mistake. It was a mistake. But
what do you mean?
Meaning that it was my first time using pen and ink, and so I made all of these errors, but the mistakes turned into this beautiful piece. And so it just encouraged me to continue to do what I wanted to do, because mistakes can become beautiful doorways, right? And so art was just natural for me. Architecture just felt too constricting for me. My granddad was a contractor, so architecture was kind of what I wanted to do. You know, as a contractor in the South, as a Black man, you know, architecture was not something that he could have done. So I thought, wow, I'm gonna, you know, be an architect to just kind of salute what he's done, because I could drive through the town where my mom grew up and I could see buildings that he built or that he was a part of, and I thought that was wonderful. I took such pride in the ingenuity and industriousness. Is that a word? The industrious people that were my ancestors. And so I wanted to just continue that lineage. But art has always been the way to do that. in business, just I have such a slick mouth that business was like kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Because I can talk the pants off of a camel. But so anyway, that's kind of where did I answer your question?
Yeah,
Yes,
you
absolutely.
did. You did for sure.
Felt like I went down a rabbit hole.
No,
but,
all of it is really good. I mean, you said, and I mean, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, Mars, too, but you said, oh my God, you said it so beautifully. You're like, I didn't want to draw to eat. I didn't want to paint to eat. And I know that was a bar. Okay. And I know, like, in my own experience, that I kind of went through that same thing. That's why I got into arts administration, because by the time graduation came for undergrad, and you know, everyone says you're supposed to be in a dance company, I was kind of like, I'm not going to make enough as a dancer to even go grocery shopping. So on top of dancing, I'll be having to have like 2-3 other jobs just to, you know, make rent, make food, you know, and it just didn't really seem worth it. And that's kind of what led me into arts admin, you know, mixing that business and art and really trying to make the best of both worlds kind of thing. But I'd love to hear what Mars has to say about that too.
Yeah, I'm gonna backtrack a little just because like it's so inspiring how these different elements of your life and your upbringing, whether it's your family or things that, you know, your family's been involved in, has like kind of made its way into not only what, you know, you're presently doing, but how you formed like your journey. I feel like sometimes as artists, we're either gonna pull from our experiences or we're gonna completely push away from them. So it truly sounds like you've used it in such a gorgeous way of like
powerful way too.
Yeah. And like you've made it, you know, into, well, it's formed you into like what you're doing now. And so I think it's just a really like gorgeous fusion of your life and your experiences and your family. So I wanted to like make note of that, because I think even now I'm kind of doing something similar, or like trying to, and finding bits and pieces of my life flowing into what I'm doing now. But kind of going back to what Kira was saying of, the way my words just left. We were talking about
the bar.
Yes.
The bar.
Not wanting to draw to eat. That, wow. Yeah, because I feel like there's more pressure there, and we've kind of talked about that in the past, of your art being your work, your source of income, and not
turning
wanting
into
to do that,
like an obligation.
Yeah.
And it's no longer fun. It's no longer I'm doing it to express myself. I'm doing it because I have to pay my bills, but now it's not feeding me anymore.
And do you find that, for me at least, if I have to produce something for an income, it kind of dries up my creativity? And that sounds very flaky, very artsy, but it's true. Like, if I know I have to do a painting to get income, I'm like dry. I can't paint anything. I can't draw anything. Yeah. But if I know there's no obligation on it, I'm just drawing and painting just freely.
Yeah, you're letting it run its course. You mentioned earlier how you had the first painting when you were 14 and you made mistakes. But I'm like, when I was choreographing, I remember when I was first going into it, I would be like, I want this to be good. And just saying I want it to be good, but it's like, what is good? What is bad? You know, how are we defining that? Who's defining that? It limited my creativity. I felt like I didn't know how to dance. I felt like I didn't know how to create. But the moment I was like, okay, we're throwing that out of the window, I was like, guys, we're just going to create a piece. And it allowed it to just go with the flow, and what may have been, say, mistakes, if I had the mindset I did prior, the piece wouldn't have turned out as strong as it did. You know, the piece wouldn't have gone on to, it got chosen to represent my school at this like conference later. And so it's just, there's so much power in like this serendipitous moments, and, you know, just letting art, you know, creating art for art's sake.
Yeah. Rather than for income or work or prompt sake, really. Like and that's even something like just thinking to like an educational aspect of, you know, in like visual arts classes. I know in school I remember them being like, oh, there's like, okay, Google has this thing that they put out to schools for visual arts students to, you know, redesign the logo, and there's always one student that's chosen, and then it's and so, you know, whoever is the most creative, the most artsy, whatever, that's gonna be the logo. And so like I remember going, you know, and trying that. I'm like, I can't think of a single thing. But then afterwards, maybe months away from it, I could be doodling and be like, why didn't I do that? Why couldn't I do that then? And it's like, yeah, because I knew there was an award on the line. Like it just, it stunts you when there's an expectation for what it is that you're doing, rather than just creating art for art's sake.
Yes. And it's the complete opposite with academics, because as highly as I loved art is as high as I love academics, because I believe that they are partners together. And again, there's clinical proof that being a disciplined artist affects you in a positive way with your academics, with math and all of those kind of things. It teaches discipline, all of that kind of stuff. And so, like, I hit the books. I would be in the library for 10 hours. I studied all the time. Now, I did have scholarships that I had to keep, but that pressure for me just made me study harder. But art is the opposite. It's completely opposite.
And I like, you know, this season, this is why it's perfect that you're on, you know, for this season in particular, because it's all about education. That's like our theme. And in our this episode and in past episodes, you know, with different artists that we've spoken with, we've pulled out the many different ways that education has either, say, been an asset, it's been a hindrance, you know, in someone's experience. But I think I got this right, if I can say this, Mars. Like, I feel like for both of us, well, I don't want to speak for you, but just from past conversations we've had, like, I feel like from both of us, education, like, it's like so in our hearts.
Oh, for sure.
Like it has not only grown us as artists, but it has been the road for us to grow as individuals and figure out our lives, figure out what we want to do. It allows us to also be experimental sometimes when we don't exactly know what to do, and we're like, okay, let me just take these classes, and then suddenly that's got me thinking about my art or my business, whatever, in a whole different way. And so like I think education is so important to an artist career, you know?
Yes, and it is. I tell artists that all the time. My favorite place is school. I would be in school forever if I could. I just love it so much. And I know I am an enigma. I know I am, what's the word? An anomaly. But I love school. I just love it. The learning, just the smell of it. When I volunteer at elementary schools, I walk in, I'm just like, oh, this is awesome. Just the smell, I just love it. It just invigorates me. And so I always encourage people to get as educated as they can, because it's just, to me, it's a weapon for your success. I just love it.
Yeah, especially in the arts world. Like, I mean, just our program alone, there are so many arts administrators that have graduated from this program. And just by coming here, we already have these connections. We already have access to certain spaces even that we didn't think, you know, we would say prior to this program. And so I think that's another reason why education's so great, because you don't know what it's going to lead to. And sometimes taking that leap of faith of, you know, getting into more debt, or, you know, having to be on a schedule, dealing with certain professors, whatever, like sometimes it is really worth it at the end of the day. I mean, Dr. GK, we wouldn't have been able to start this podcast even. Yeah,
without meeting her, and her literally just showing us on a whim, like, hey, the studio's here, let me take you on this tour that lasted for like 4 or 5 hours. And we made connections just in our, you know, institution alone. But, you know, it's brought us to this point of the podcast, to the episodes we've had, the guests we've had, you emailing us, like, it's crazy how it kind of unfolded to this point. And like just the greatness in making connections, and you just never know who knows somebody or where education's going to take you and who you might meet.
Yes, the connections are, I have made such wonderful connections that I would not have made otherwise. And that's very important. And I've been able to be that for other people. That's very important to me. So yeah, I totally agree with that for sure.
Yeah, I wanted to shift a little bit. I wanted to go back into your experience that you were telling us about art consulting. I know for me, well, we know what art is, we know what consulting is, but really getting into the nuance of how you put those two together. What does that work look like? Who do you work with? Not saying you have to give us names, but like, is it institutions, nonprofits? Like, what's the vibes?
I normally work with corporate, commercial, and government groups.
Oh wow, okay.
But really, any group that would need me, there have been nonprofits that have reached out to me that have collections or whatever. So what I basically do is I advise them on the right artwork for their business, for their space, in the hopes, again, of making sure that it is aligned with their purpose, their mission, their mandate. And if they have a corporate artwork collection, I will manage that for them as well.
Oh, wow.
So I'll go in and say, I go in and assess the space and say, okay, is this space doing what it needs to do with the artwork that's here? And if it's not, then I'm going to advise. My expertise is going to be looking at size, placement, subject matter, color, all of that kind of stuff to determine if it's working right. And then the artwork that I advise is going to speak in a positive way towards that. Does that make sense? Yeah. I think I was saying this a moment ago. If I'm in a law office, if I'm in a medical clinic, if I'm in a bank, the artwork is going to be different for each of those places. Because if I'm in a medical clinic, you want to have artwork that's promoting healing and serenity. And there are colors and subject matters that speak to that more than others. If I'm in a law office, I want to make sure that the people that come in can trust me. They have this feeling of trust and security. So all of these kinds of things are what I think about. And it's really about assessing the space and getting to know the people that inhabit the space, because their personality is going to speak to also what I advise. Because I don't make these decisions autonomously. I always partner with the client to say, okay, I'm going to give you these pieces and let's talk about what you like about what I'm showing you and what you don't like, because then we're going to whittle it down. So if I show them 10 pieces and they show me what they like and they don't like, we're going to whittle it down to 5, down to 3, down to 2. And then we're going to get the piece that really is perfect for their space. So when they walk in every day, when their employees walk in, when clients walk in, they're going to say, this space is doing what it needs to do. And that's very powerful. When you can see that shift in the space, then you've done something right. And I just love that. To me, that's so important. And again, this was all kind of birthed out of my experience in corporate America, because I worked in healthcare, I worked in finance, I worked in all these different kind of industries, and each industry had terrible art that was misaligned with its purpose. And I thought, wow, how can I do what I needed back then? And art would have gone a long way towards, that. Now, art is not going to solve every problem, let's be real, but it's going to affect quite a few of them. And with dance and with music, that could bring communities together. It could tear them apart. It could uplift, it can encourage, it can edify, or it could tear down and be a negative influence. So there are many ways that we can use the arts in a powerful way. And we can start very simply. It doesn't have to be this big mandate. It could be, you can start small and very simple. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. And so I always tell clients, we start very simple. you know, what are your favorite colors? We start there. That's very simple. We don't have to. And also, a lot of what I do is being a bit of an art therapist. I have to convince clients sometimes that it's okay to buy art. Like, you're not wasting your money, you're not being frivolous, you're actually making an investment in your company, in yourself. And if you have a collection, it's going to be admired, it's going to be enjoyed for generations. You know, these things are going to last forever. But yeah, sometimes people think that, you know, art is for the elitist, or it's frivolous, or it's not something that they should spend their money on. But when they do, they realize how important it is. You know, if you want to go see a ballet and you think, well, $200 is too much for that ticket. But think about the work that these dancers have put in, right? And when you go, you're transformed. You know, I go to the ballet all the time and I love it, or just dance all the time. And I love it because when I go, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I can't do what they do, but I feel this invigorating energy, and it's just beauty.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, my money was well spent, whether it was $50, whether it was whatever, because that's supporting them and their craft. In whatever art form that I'm involved in, I like to do that. And sometimes you have to convince your clients that it's worth it.
Yeah.
So I do kind of dance for my dinner sometimes.
But no, we talk about a lot in our classes here, the impact of arts and how, I mean,
and the experience.
People are still trying to figure out how to measure the impact exactly, but it's still like, you know, when you go into communities, when you start speaking with people and ask them about their experiences of a certain work, whether it's dance or, you know, a show at a gallery, you know, people say, you know, I had this very visceral experience. I had this very cathartic experience, and it helped me work through this or this and this. And it sounds like, you know, all of that and the research that you have done and the work that you do with your clients as well, that same kind of feedback is coming, and you want to really use that to then pick artworks or, you know, find collections but that, you know, that might best suit the place that you're working with. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree that art is, it, you know, sometimes you don't even know what's gonna have an impact on you until you actually see it, until you witness it, and then you're like, I didn't know I needed this, but my soul clearly did. And I imagine that, you know, when you're bringing in these new works for these different, you know, places that you work with, like, I imagine they have similar experiences, you know?
Yes, like, I didn't know I needed this.
Something that was a bare wall. They walk in and they're like, oh, my day's better.
Right.
Yes. I love that visceral experience that you just talked about. It impacts me as well as my client. I'm an emotional person anyway, so I will be crying with them. You know, I will be crying with them. You know, So I enjoy it for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's really powerful that you're not only convincing them and encouraging them to invest in their own business, but to invest in the experience of that business that it is that they're walking into. Like, because I think that plays a huge part into what people are doing, and it's an everyday thing that people are doing. If you're spending if you're spending money somewhere, or even if it's like an appointment for something, like you're walking into an experience. And so
it's more than just the conversation with the person.
Exactly. From the moment you step into the door or step into the lobby of whatever it is, like, that's the beginning of your impression of whatever you're about to experience. So
first impressions.
Exactly.
That's a wonderful way to put it. Yes, Mars, that's great. I'm going to put that on my website. The moment you step in the door, that's awesome.
We'll send you the citation.
Right.
I love it. Yes, I will give you credit for sure. That is awesome. I love that.
Thank you. No, because like that, what you were saying, like, really made me think about it. Like, my cousin, she's looking at apartments and other places, and you know, there was one that she sends me videos, like we chat about them, but you know, there was one where she didn't necessarily love the apartment, but she raved for, you know, a minute about the lobby of that apartment building because of the artwork specifically that was there. And she was like, it's so gorgeous. And I was so excited to look at the apartments. And while the apartments were a different story, the moment she walked in, that is what immediately impressed her. And that is what she was like, oh, okay, I have high hopes. Like, it started off the bar for her so high because of what she was seeing the moment she walked through the door. And, you know, for arts organizations, we talk about, oh, our consumers are investing in an experience. And I think that goes not even just for arts organizations, but to what you're doing of investing in that moment. And that's, I think, a good thing to focus on, especially in anything that we're doing.
Yeah. I'm thinking about like a government building. You know, like someone might be like, oh my God, it's so intimidating. But then you walk in and you see like colors on the wall, or you walk and you see these beautiful art pieces, and then suddenly you're not as scared to go talk with the IRS.
They're normally so drab and dark. And my mom's a veteran, and whenever I'm in a veteran administrative building, I'm always like, Mom, this is so depressing, you know? I want to salute the people that have served our country. And we can do that in ways that are different than just a flag, or different than, the kind of standard photos you see.
And there are artists out there making works to do just that. How about we put those on the wall? Yeah.
Exactly. So when, like you said, when they walk in, those veterans are uplifted and they are inspired and they feel like they've been given a thank you. So that's why I love working with government spaces, because those gray drab buildings need me.
Yeah. There was so for one of my courses here, it's called Race in the Arts. Our professor, she took us to go see this film. And it was a film about an artist who created this work called Paint Me Road Out of Here. And it was placed inside of Rikers Island. And the work was first commissioned because it was all women's prison still when or the women's unit, it's all women's first, when the work was first commissioned. And this artist, she went in and it was just such a bare wall. I mean, it's Rikers Island, so just bad conditions, and the wall was so bare, and the women, they were like paint me a road out of here, like give me hope, like bring something into the space that helps us feel as if there is a next for us when we get out of here. And so she created this beautiful painting. I'll actually we'll send you an email of it, because I want you to see it. But it was, when it was this giant work, they placed it on the wall like as soon as you were entering the women's unit, and the feedback from the ladies that were in prison, they all they had so much hope. They felt so much better, their time there, like it may have still been a really tough time, but so many people were called, when they went back and visited the work once it got into the Brooklyn Museum, which is still there now. People will go back and they would look at the work, and they'd start crying, they'd start tearing up and just expressing how this painting alone made their experience like that much better. It made them really just work through whatever it was they were experiencing internally or externally with other people, and it just it just inspired them so much, which I just feel like that really relates to what we're talking about. And what you do is allowing people to have experiences, allowing the space in and of itself to also have an experience. Like we think of a white cube gallery as just a white cube gallery, but then suddenly you put something on the walls, and depending on what show it is, it changes. Like the atmosphere itself changes, which can also impact the experience of someone who walks into the space. And so just I feel like what you have created, it's so unique, and I think it really has the potential to, or is doing this, to get people thinking, to get people talking about art and giving it a space to hold weight in wherever, it's placed, because art, artists do need more recognition, especially in, these government buildings or big foundations or whatever it is. Like, art is not just meant for the artists. It's not just meant for the foundations that fund the arts. It truly is for everyone. And so the more conversations that you have with, the clients that you do and, clients that you'll have in the future, like, it's exciting to hear that they'll start believing that too. Like, just amazing.
That's all. You guys should be my marketing director. You speak so well about what I do. This is awesome. Awesome.
Feel free.
I love increasing people's art IQs is what I call it. Right? If their art IQs can be increased after they've dealt with me, then I feel like I've done something. Where they could have a conversation, even if it's 2 minutes, about art that is relatively informed, then I feel like I've done something, important. I feel like I've done something good. But yeah, you have to kind of demystify what art is, because as artists, all of us, right? When people ask us what we do, lots of times they don't understand. So we kind of have to demystify what it is and break it down. And then they're like, oh, that's awesome. Like if you could talk about dance, you could talk about, what's the instrument that you play again, Mars?
Violin.
Violin, right. I know nothing about the violin, but I would love to hear about it. I totally would. I think it's awesome. The violin is kind of like it's a physical instrument,
Yeah.
Like I played tennis for many years, and so it's kind of like tennis, it's like this cutting, and I love it. I would love to hear more about it. But you have to explain to people like me, like, what is a violin? What do you do? And, I would love to hear about it. So people are kind of like, they need to have their art IQs increased a lot of times, but do it in a way that's kind and simple. That's the way I like to approach it, because you're not dumb because you don't know. You just don't know.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, kind of going off of that and, talking about what you've been able to, accomplish with like increasing their art IQ. I'm curious about when you were first starting off as an arts consultant and creating your business. Like, what was that like for you, like blending both your corporate experience and your art experience together to what you're doing now? Like, I guess, what are some, lessons that you've learned along the way?
I am always learning. I'm always kind of creating my business, because there have been there have been times in my business where I had to pause for various reasons. And so I had to kind of start up again. And in 2020, when I kind of reestablished the business after this pause, the pandemic shut me down the next 2 weeks, right? And so I really kind of had to restructure and revisit my mission and foundation. And it was a wonderful opportunity to kind of look at myself as a new business again. So I'm always learning, I'm always creating, but every experience I've had has spoken to what I do now, good or bad. So all of that stuff I learned in corporate America is transferable to being a business owner. Everything I learned as a student is transferable to being a business owner, because I'm always learning. I'm always working with people. I'm always, partnering with people. So it's really everything I've done, Mars, has spoken to what I do now, good or bad. So when I have experiences, I'm always like, wow, what can I learn from this? How can I apply this to my life today? What meat will I eat and what will I throw away? And doing that on a regular basis really helps me to live authentically and have my business structured in a way that I want it to be structured. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think.
Awesome. Yeah.
And it sounds like, having all these experiences also moving forward allows you to connect with all different kinds of people. I think especially for, say, like students or young people, I feel like, it's quite easy for us to get lost, speaking as a current young person. And, you never know who you're going to get inspired by. Even like I've never heard of an art consultant before. So us interacting, having this experience with you is already allowing me to think of more things I could do with my, with my art and business, this arts admin degree, and that's an experience that, say, other people that you interact, all different kinds of people that you interact with in the future can have too. So yeah, it's really special.
Yeah.
Awesome. I always tell people to be open to being redirected. That's being flexible. There, like I said, there have been pauses where I've had to pivot and redirect what I've been doing. So I had to be flexible to allow that to happen. So the rigidity is really not a good thing when you're in business. You have to be amenable to change and shifts. That's very important. It's very important.
Yeah. No, thank you. That truly thank you for like coming on. You've given us so many like words of thought, food for thought, really. Especially even like Kira was saying of being able to talk to different experiences and different ways of life. And I really attached to what you had said about thinking of yourself as a new business consistently, especially as someone who's like, you've been doing it for a minute, but constantly being able to reflect on your journey so far and where you are and where you've been, especially in the arts. Like, I think we're constantly talking about reflecting, but actually reflecting and then adjusting based on that. I think that's the harder part to do.
Yeah, letting it inform next steps.
And I love people to see me doing it, right?
Yeah.
Because there are not people that are doing it that look like me. So when they see me, they're not expecting to see me, right? And I love that surprise where they're like, wow, and it shouldn't be that way. I shouldn't be a surprise. There should be Black women doing what I'm doing, right? But there aren't. And so I love to be able to do that and surprise them and show them show us in a positive way. And you guys know this, being one of the few or the only. Sometimes you have to, it's not fair, but we have to do better than everyone else so that we are seen. And so when people see me, I take that as an honor for them to see me doing this, where they can look at me in a positive way and see me doing something that they can aspire to, or even just working with me. I think it's good where people see people like us doing things that are outside of what people expect us to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And like putting ourselves out there, like you reaching out to us, like I mentioned earlier before we started the podcast, but the podcast has been growing, more people have been listening to not just what Mars and I have to say, but what our special guests have to say also. And so I can imagine that you taking the initiative to put yourself out there, whether it's with your clients or podcast or whatever it is, like more people will get to know you and get to know what you're doing, and it'll just bring so much more representation into our field of this is what Black people can do. This is like
yes, we are awesome. Yes, that's all. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mars, do you want to close us out?
Absolutely. I guess, you've touched on like some of the things you've learned, but if there's any, last bits of advice that you would give to those who are looking to even like start up their own arts related business or just in general young artists, we'd love to hear your words of wisdom, additional words of wisdom.
I always say this. I always say, don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't fear, because God is with you. I always say that.
Praise him. Praise him.
Oh, I got snaps. Oh my goodness, I love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We should have an episode called like Faith and Art. Like, I don't know, something, because I'm like, the Lord be bringing.
Well, you know what, guys? I'm actually a licensed and ordained minister. So I also operate a ministry. So I have a business that I run, and I also run a ministry as well. Wow. So you guys didn't know that.
Now we know.
Right.
So I will support you spiritually as well. Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for so much words of wisdom, for sharing your experience, sharing your journey, and coming on and talking with us. I think I can speak here for both of us when I say that we have appreciated this so much. And it's been just so amazing to talk with you and get to know a bit more about you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me on. This has been so special to me. I love speaking into your lives, and I hope it was a blessing to you. It was to me. Absolutely. For sure.
It sure was. Thank you so much. And when we get that Faith and Heart podcast episode, we'll be sure to reach out again.
We're gonna let you know.
Yeah, we're gonna.
I am on it. I am on it.
We're gonna see what happens with that. But yeah, thank you again, and thank you to all of our viewers and listeners for tuning in this episode. We look forward to you guys joining us next week or in 2 weeks for our very last episode with the founder, additional founder of this podcast. Right. But we'll speak more about her next week. For now, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.
See ya.
Bye.